today we're going to be looking at what is a statistical question. All right, so we did talk about this in another video in our statistics playlist, but looking at what is a statistical question, we're really going to be looking at data, not so much gathering data and doing mean, mode, and all that stuff, but whether our data can actually be considered a statistical question. So a statistical question is something that where you get an answer that is in data form, meaning number form, and then it could vary from one person to the next. So I did take sociology as a major before I became a teacher, so I did a lot of this in college. So a good example would be this day and age. Let's say that I talked to my 7th graders and I asked how much time they spent on their phones, from one person to the next. So I might have like Billy, who says that he spends 8 hours a day on his phone, where another kid might say that they only spend 2 hours a day on the phone. So you can gather that data, and then it's going to be different from one person to the next. We're also going to look at what is biased versus unbiased types of questions when it comes to surveys. And then another good example of a statistical question is, let me show you. I'm going to actually show you a question I asked to the population was how cool I am on a scale of 1 to 10. So let's look at our chart and see what the data says. So as I said before, I polled the population asking how cool I am on a scale of 1 to 10. And we laid out some of our data here. You can see that we went up to 10. That would be our numerical piece of a statistical question. I'm asking different people. So you can see that everybody else rated me as a 10, which naturally is going to happen. And then over here, oh, wait a minute. My wife's Mrs. Small rated me as a -1. I'm not really sure how that could happen. All right, so what they want us to do here is to determine which sampling method would better represent the entire population, all right? So it says we're looking at the reading habits of high school students, and our sampling method is here, and then the results are here on the right column. So the first one, it says that Jerry surveyed 41 students he knows, all right? And then the second one says that Kendall gives survey forms to 200 students who are randomly chosen from a school attendance list. Now, if Jerry is surveying 41 students he knows, that is what we call biased, all right? Because he may be surveying people that he knows reads more, all right, so we can get better results. And then we can see that we have 89% have read a novel in the past month. Now, where Kendall gives survey forms to 200 students who are randomly, that's the key word right there, randomly chosen from a school attendance list, and her results are 60% have read a novel in the past month. So obviously this is not biased. Kendall is choosing randomly, and it's 200 people. All right, let's take a look at another one. It says our XYZ company is polling people to see what their employee satisfaction is. So here's our sampling method on the left column, and then here are the results. So Wendy interviews 70 employees who were randomly selected from the company's payroll list, where Bernie interviews the last 30 employees to be hired. The results for Wendy were 65% feel adequately challenged by their jobs, and Bernie's is 85% feel adequately challenged by their jobs. So a key word, as we mentioned before, is randomly. If you're randomly selecting them, then there is no bias, all right? But at the same time, if you're randomly selecting the last 30 employees, you have to be careful there. But she's randomly selecting from the company's payroll list, so it doesn't say anything about what time they were hired. But here, it's most likely that they're going to give a different answer for Bernie's employees, because he's picking people that were just hired recently. So it looks like Wendy would have a better sampling method. All right, in this particular question, they're asking us to determine if this is a biased or unbiased way to survey people. So it's stating that a landlord emails 60 of his 1,250 tenants and surveys them to determine whether they would like to use the internet to pay rent. Well, this is actually going to be considered a biased type of way to survey people. One of the reasons could be is likely that not all tenants will give the same answer as those tenants who actually use email. The other thing is he's not going to reach everyone, because some people may not have internet use, so they're not even going to know how to answer the question. So this is definitely going to be considered a biased type of way to survey. All right, for this particular problem, all right, so for this one, we're looking to see if it's biased or unbiased. So an insurance company surveys 350 of its customers by randomly choosing names from its customer database and then telephoning those customers. Well, once again, the keys that we're looking at randomly, but we got to make sure that they're not randomly choosing friends or something like that. So this actually would be a non-biased question. This would be a non-biased survey because it's once again saying that it's random. All right, and then for our last two questions here, they want us to determine whether we should survey the entire population or a sample. So number one says, you want to know how many hours members of a sports team train each week. All right, so for this, you could actually survey the entire population because the entire population isn't actually that large of a sports team. I mean, depending on the sport, it could be up to maybe 15 people or 20, but it's easily accessible to survey the entire population. So those are the questions you need to keep in mind with that. All right, and then the last one says, you want to know the average income of people who eat at vegetarian restaurants across the country. So this portion right here is a dead giveaway that there's no way that we're going to be able to survey every single person across the country that eat at vegetarian restaurants. So it would probably be more suitable for us to do a sample of those types of people.